Hello, hello, hello. Welcome again to the Need to Know Crosstalk Show. My name's Zeke Dorset. I'm hosting here again. It's the second episode. Really, really grateful to be here today. It's an amazing time of the year so far, and what an amazing topic we have as well, and a beautiful host as well. We may have a couple of guests later as well. It's just been a funny time with the internet, computers, and connecting. But we are here, and I have Glenn Dixon with me as well on the show. How you doing, Glenn?
I'm very good, thank you.
Excellent. I see you've got another guest with you as well there, probably underneath your feet now. So a little bit about Glenn. He is a lover of life. And I'm a stay-at-home dad, which I think is incredible. I admire that so much. I thought, could I do that? And I'd definitely be able to do that myself. But what amazing! It's just something. Maybe it's just me, but I don't meet many male individuals that are stay-at-home dads, and I just think it's quite incredible. That bond must be amazing with your children. Maybe we're going to discuss and talk about that at a later stage. But beautiful. I mean, the topic, guys, today is about emotions. Our emotions. Wow. I mean, where to start with that? I thought it was just coming into 2019 and the transitional shifts I've had within my own state of well-being and upcoming, I guess, awakening, call it that, in all areas of my life. Emotions is a big deal, and it seems to cover a lot of areas in my life and what I see in many other people's lives. So, I've got a little something here that's from Wikipedia, so don't judge me on this. I'm just saying, it's just a few words.
No, take it out.
That was to the crowd. Emotion is a mental state. Emotion is a mental state variously associated with thoughts, feelings, behavioural responses, and a degree of pleasure or displeasure. There is no scientific consensus on the definition. Emotion is often intertwined with mood, temperament, personality, disposition, and motivation. In some theories, cognition is an important aspect of emotion. Those acting primarily on the emotions they are feeling may seem as if they are not thinking, but mental processes are still essential, particularly in the interpretation of events. For example, the realization of our believing that we are in a dangerous situation and the subsequent arousal of our body's nervous system is integral to the experience of our feeling afraid. And it goes on a little bit more there, expressing about consciously experiencing an emotion is exhibiting a mental representation of that emotion from a past or hypothetical experience. And it's linked back to a context state of pleasure or displeasure, and established by verbal explanations of experiences describing an internal state. I know there's quite a lot there, and maybe you grabbed a few bits and pieces on that, but the main parts really that I wanted to jumped out first of all. Well, the first question I would like is from you, Glenn, is your interpretation of what emotion actually is, because it's a lot of people talk about it in a different way. I have my own approach, but I'm really intrigued to know what your idea of what emotion actually is. The
word that caught my attention in your description was the not thinking part.
Right.
How it kind of creeps up on you. Seems to be more of a body, associated with the body than the mind.
Right.
Right? Because it comes over you like a wave.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're already on a link, I can tell, because you just nailed it with wave, and so I know where you're coming from with it. So, yeah, definitely. I continue, please.
Well, I can give an example.
Sure.
So in relations, close relations, like say me and my wife, if she came home from work and she had a rough day and she wasn't, something happened, didn't even know the circumstances, as soon as she walked through the door, that wave will hit me, and immediately I'm taken over, and it seems to be it's hard to put words to it, but it's a vibration. I can tell that because I'm pretty in tune with the subtle energies of the body. And immediately, if her mood is down, vibration low, we'll say, and she's upset or whatever, and her mood immediately just transfers right into me, and I'm on that same level entirely. And it's tricky business because when two people are unhappy, of course, you can clash and things can get out of hand quickly. So acknowledging it is key, I think, so that it doesn't get out of hand. So when this situation arises, it's imperative to acknowledge it, because a lot of my life I went through until recently, I would be reactive, not understanding what was happening at the time. So I'd be very reactive, and almost as if you were in the dark and you couldn't see, you had no vision at all. You were not able to comprehend nothing. It just hit you.
Yeah.
And now, at least now, I have the capacity to acknowledge it, because I'm a little more tuned in with my subtle energies, so that I see what's happening. And so, in so doing, it's a little more tolerable, I would say, because it's a work in progress, and it evolves like anything. So, back to the point, my dog is over there talking to me as well, so she's emotional too. But so it doesn't really change it changes the dynamic, but you still have to deal with the emotion. The emotion is not reduced, I don't think, but just in the fact that you acknowledge it changes the dynamic, and it shifts it just a little bit so that it doesn't get out of hand. I shouldn't say not always, but for the most part, sure. If it's dealt with properly, if you step away from it, go something else, distraction, and you can take a breath, take a little break, and then come back into it with a fresh openness. We'll come back into it with an openness that allows the whatever the situation is, whatever the emotions are, to be able to deal with them a little better, I would say, and be open to it, and allow for the emotion to travel, because like it is a vibration. Allow it to do its thing, and just be that space so that it can come in, and try not to put any defenses up and stop it. Just allow it to come in and allow it to flow right through you.
I'm with you.
Yeah, try to be a space to allow it to happen, and just allow it to come into you and go through. And it, with no resistance, I think is the key, because if you put up a little bit of resistance, you've built it's just like an electrical circuit. If there's any resistance there, you get heat, right?
Yeah.
You get friction.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. So a couple of things there you spoke of was it being an electromagnetic sense of like a wave. I'm totally in tune with that. And the idea of emotion for me is, like many things for us spiritual beings in this realm, is to label things. It allows it to become easier to sort of identify in a certain way. So that the wave, where is the wave coming from? You spoke of it being from the more of a bodily approach. It's coming from the body. It's not so much, you can't really label it or give it. So I have a problem with like words, but you probably know that more when you get to know me. But the organ that we get emotions from, clearly to me, seems to be the heart. because it's the one that drums, it's the one that beats, right?
Yeah.
You can see this in many things, like whether it be the Earth's pulse or any other living being. You know, it's that pulse clearly that's you can go a bit more deeper into the dynamics of how the heart works and how it pumps around the blood, etc. And you can really connect the dots. But the heart as a whole, we did speak about that being the organ that penetrates these incredible waves. Now, it's been told that, or it's been expressed that the heart is how many times stronger? It's a lot stronger than 60 times greater. Here we go. If I read it for you, the heart, like the brain, generates a powerful electromagnetic field. This is explained in The Energetic Heart by McGrady. The heart generates the largest electromagnetic field in the body. The electrical field, as measured in an electrocardiogram, is about 60 times greater in amplitude than the brain waves recorded in an electroencephalograph. Don't ask me to say that again, because I can't say that for the life. But 60 times greater is a big deal. The heart compared to the brain is what I'm getting at. And the idea of what emotions are, from a lot of people that I've approached in many of mine, and yours as well, the idea where they seem to get, because it's processed from the brain, because we label an emotion with we label the feeling to an emotion, and like if you label anger, you can create what it looks like. You can kind of give it clothes, you know.
Yeah.
And that, I guess that's kind of what the brain does, and allows us to interpretate in a way. But the heart has something way more intense, way more ingrained. It's way more. The words are so difficult to put onto this, but you know what I'm trying to get at with the heart is how is it you came across the idea or came into the inner knowledge of knowing that the heart was the organ that you had to decipher, cleanse, rebuild, refit, rejig. Like, can you elaborate a little bit more on that? I'm chucking a few questions out at once there, but the organ is the heart. How do we fix that? How do we clean it up?
There's a classic meme, because I love memes, and I'm sure you've heard it. It's the heart. The heart knows what it wants, or whatever the heart wants, it gets. The heart knows. It seems to me that it makes the ultimate decision in the end. Even though the mind wants to put clothes on everything and label it, ultimately, I think it all comes down to the heart's decision. Mm. The heart knows what it wants. So when we talk about three brains, stomach, heart, and mind,
right?
I think ultimately there's 60 times more power in the heart than there is in the mind. So that says it all. It's got 60 times more say in the matter. So our minds right now are talking about it as if we could fix something. Guess what? I think we just answered the question. I don't know if there's any way of fixing the heart. It knows what it wants and it goes for it, even though we have all kinds of conceptions of how to fix it or how to deal with an emotion. But I think in the end, the emotion, it's fundamental. It probably controls every decision we make, even though our minds probably want to claim it. I don't think the mind really has any options.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So I had a couple of things going on there. So yeah, the heart being the main organ, and it does seem to be the controller. There's something going on there, like spoke about the temperaments earlier, and I've been looking into a little bit more of that as well. And yeah, the blood seems to be quite vital, quite key. You know, how we evolve the egotistical side of us, which ultimately is very powerful, especially in this realm for us. That can be another topic. You know, people trying to not identify themselves as the ego, like that. But my understanding is quite important if the ego is synced with who you are, you know, rather than this made-up character.
Yeah, I agree 100%.
Yeah. Well, just coming back a little bit from that. So, to know how the heart works and how it allows emotions, these waves, to take place. So you being a host and you are setting out these emotions, or you are allowing these emotions to come through you, like you described earlier with your wife and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. How do we integrate? How do we put the understanding of using the waves in a manner where you are not so much, I wouldn't say affected, because you have to be affected by it. I guess what I'm trying to get at is to know, like, for example, people can have an idea of what anger is when they see it, but how do you know when you feel it, you know, without words? Because we're going deep with the heart, like off the heartbeats, minus the clothes that we've given the idea of what anger is. I'm just deciding, just picking anger as it is. You strip all of that away, you've got the wave. How can we get to the stage of knowing what we're dealing with, so we can, like you shared earlier, have the opportunity to maybe disengage or to cut off any possible situations or aggro or interference, call it, mate? How have you learned to take on? Is there any new practices or?
Yeah.
Go on, please talk.
Yeah. No, that's the gig right there. That's the ultimate one, I think. I used that word a minute ago. It's identification, and it all does come back to the ego, because with anger, especially, as soon as you have the emotion, the heart feels. This is my practice. As soon as the heart feels that pull to engage into, we'll say it's anger, into something that has potential, you know, to turn into something. Immediately, the practice is to disidentify the ego, because the ego is the one that wants to identify, wants to grab a hold of it and make it its own, so that it can do its thing. It wants to be involved always. It seems cliche to talk about it, because I mean, with the new age movements, spirituality, everybody talks about how important it is to disidentify with our egos. In this particular situation, though, I feel that it's a practice, and it's ongoing. In every moment, we have choices to make, and if you feel that you have been tempted to be pulled into a situation, to be reactive, because it's a heart-based thing that you feel like you've got to say, or you got to do something, because you feel like it's a vortex. You're being sucked in, and the only my take on it is that just to disidentify with the ego, the ego self, in order to be, to see, well, like I said earlier, in order to let that wave of emotion travel through, you got to be transparent. I think that word is coming in time, seemingly. But that transparency is important so that you don't identify so much with the ego or the self, the sense of not having an ego. I call it the self. So disidentifying allows that to allow you, or creates a transparency, I have to say, because allowing you is identifying with the ego or the self again. But just acknowledging it, being aware of how this wave of emotion comes in, and then immediately acknowledge and aware to the feeling, and for it gets a chance to grab you to the point where you're reacting, you just allow. And when you allow it, it doesn't have anything to grab onto. It's just travels right through you transparently. You're not putting up any resistance. Ideally, you're not putting up a wall for it to bounce and all of a sudden reel down, right? So it just be as transparent as possible. Allow it to go through, and try not to be reactive. I mean, this doesn't work all the time. This is an ideal kind of scenario where we work towards getting there. I get reactive. Everybody does, and everybody has an ego. But ultimately, I think that it's a practice that I work at. And like just before we had started this call, my dogs, of course, just before you're ready to go, and do something, that's when the kids, the dogs, everything seems to just go out of control. Just at that moment when you think you need control, you think you need solace, you think you need this and that, and you want to line everything up, stack it all up so everything's just lined up perfectly. That never happens. It always works out the opposite, and just you need that quiet. That's when everything goes amok. And then, the ego, the anger, I wouldn't say anger in that situation. I'd have to say this, the anxiety. It just hits like, just the emotion just, oh my God, what am I going to do? I'm about to go online. We're going to talk about emotions, and already I'm PO'd here.
Yeah. I got so much from that. And the main one, which is, I love this one, because for me, sharing about the temperaments and bits and pieces on the ego itself, I find the ego absolutely fascinating. I find it detrimental. I find it very, very important, very, very important to who we are in this realm. And I feel that, you spoke about the new sort of spiritual movement, etc., about disidentifying yourself with the ego, and again, I spoke a little bit earlier about the unfortunate, or maybe not in detail, but I think language is slightly muddled up, and people because what the brain does is it creates, you say something, it will create and it will mold it, and then it will present it to you like that. And the ego, misunderstood. I think it's very much misunderstood. And what I mean by that is, what I see as the ego is, well, first of all, it's a label. And second of all, it is a representation of who you are at that time in waves, in an emotional, energetical, not an emotional, in an energetical point of being. You are you are shaped, formed, fashioned in a certain way, depending on at that present time. And so you're
constantly in flux.
Yeah. So to me, your ego right now, what I'm seeing is you. Your ego is presenting you in this realm to me as you are. Which is absolutely fine. I think the ego is very neutral. I don't think it's a bad thing. I don't think it's a good thing. Actually, what I feel the ego does is exactly what you want it to do. The problem that people don't, the problem that I find with, I can only talk about myself and what I've been learning more with myself and still learning. But what I found is that with the ego is that, first of all, in my child, I'm 34 years old, I was going to say 33, 34 years old. And, you know, I've had some trials and tribulations and whatnot, and some funny situations with emotions, still learning. But I can definitely say that I didn't have a grasp of who I was as a spiritual being. So naturally what happens with the ego, which is connected really to your higher self, you know, it is a connection to represent you in this outwardly to other people and things in this realm. That's the way I see what the ego is, you know. It was misunderstood. And what the ego does beautifully is that it kind of puts itself into an autopilot mode. You don't have to remember or memorize or this and that or whatever. You know, we've been taught things, for example, from a young age. But this, that, don't do this, don't do that. Oh, you've seen anger. This is what anger is, isn't it? It ingrains it. It chucks it into a storage library like a cloud, and then we reenact it. I think it's an amazing tool. The problem is that if one doesn't know oneself, the ego can override you quite viciously in ways, and it's not actually the ego's fault. It's just been programmed incorrectly. I think it can be really quite a powerful tool to use if you had a true alignment with yourself and the ego. Actually, the ego means, in my head, in my brain, it means good. It means it wants the best out of you, if that makes sense. It doesn't need food. It doesn't need anything. It don't need clothes. But what it does is it charges you and allows you to be you, you know, in any way, shape or form. And if you haven't got the understanding of how the ego works, it can be a massive problem. This is kind of what I believe what the ego is. I think it's very important. And I'm confident that we could actually recreate a new ego. What do you think about that? So a new ego, emotions. It kind of makes sense in my head.
Yeah. No, I love the idea of it. I love the idea of it. Right away, there is this conversation is happening because I love the idea that you just had. Could we actually have this conversation if I didn't identify as somebody, an ego?
Right.
Talking to somebody else, another ego. Like I said, it's necessary. I agree 100%. It would be like drones without. It gives
absolutely.
It gives us special qualities that our parents and hopefully some good quality teachers give us throughout our path. At least, I think maybe too, if our parents did a good job, let's say, and we retained some of the better qualities, and we were able to acknowledge in ourselves what those good qualities are: being genuine, loving, honest. What else? There's three of the better ones there. So
everything the heart wants you to be.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, totally. It just makes so much more sense. And going a little bit more deep into trying to decipher what emotions are. And we spoke about sort of being programmed from a young age, and you shared about what your parents and your peers and teachers have passed on to you, hopefully, regardless. Let's chuck out the good or bad, what's been passed on to you. Reshaping our belief systems. Now, anyone who knows their etymology and whatnot, belief is, something to ponder on. But definitely, most people have beliefs in something. Now, my approach into the whole idea of reshaping your belief system is to be open to changing your belief system to better your ego. Like, if you're, for example, how can I put this? If you're quite an angry individual, anger just seems to pop in all the time. If you're quite an angry individual and you're a character, let's just focus on me. So when I was younger, or not long ago, I used to watch, say, quite dark films, horror films, dark films, shoot 'em ups, this, that. I've seen a few, like, you know, it's gone down purposely. I mean, I had this years ago, just when I used to be a recreational drug user and stuff. I haven't done that for over 3 years now, but something was happening. There was a transitional change. There was a different wave. And I felt like something wasn't right because the way I was thinking, which I didn't have a grasp of at all because I didn't know who I was, and I'm still learning who I am, but I have more of a grasp on than what I did then. It's definitely my ego taking an approach. When I was going out into the real world, call it, like, and I'd be having conversations and relations and stuff, and things wouldn't go my way, call it that. My thinking was dangerous, really sick, like, I talk about the dark films and stuff like that because I created dark attitudes about me, and I brought them into this realm with me. It became part of my ego. My ego stored that information and made it live. So, fortunately, I had this idea that, you know, I don't need. I questioned myself. Why am I watching these people get severed and cutting up and shooting? And, you know, I stopped even playing army games. I don't understand what army I do, but I don't get it. I totally disconnected with it. And I used to watch my friends play shoot 'em up games, Call of Duty, Battlefield, whatever it is. And he'll be online. I'll be swearing at this person who's in Wales or another across the other side of the world while they're bloody doing headshots and this and that, and really dark. And you can just see this energy being created. And I just didn't want none of it, you know. And so creating or reshaping a new belief system, I feel, is so important for us because we have been shaped and formed and fashioned and ingrained in us, you know, unfortunately for most people, before they even had the opportunity to say yes or no to what anger is or what happiness is, you know. I don't think most people have had the opportunity to, you know, learn from a peer and say, you know, what do you feel about this, or how do you feel about that, or do you like this? You know, you kind of just taken stuff on. What's your take on reshaping a new belief system? And you touch base on the ego. As kind of got the same idea on the ego anyway, but, you know, I feel the ego is very important. It needs to kind of be looked after and nurtured personally. What's your take on that, the new belief system?
Yeah. Well, funny, you know, I got flashes of images coming to mind when you're talking there. And one of them was Alan Watts, God rest his soul.
Yeah.
You know, that is the game we're playing now, isn't it? We walk to the edge of the precipice. We get closer. We inch ourselves closer and closer, scare ourselves. We love that, the thrill. And then we get to the edge. We look over, and then we head to the hills, run back. That's the game, right?
Yeah, it's like someone should have told us it was like an adult's game, like a real adult's game, because most of us don't really know what we're playing with. You know, when push comes to shove and we do hit that edge, you know, this is why we see so many problems with people having mental illnesses, things like this that we see like that. I swear there's a new one every month, it feels like, you know. I'm just hearing words I ain't heard before. And what the hell's that? Like, and it's all to do with your emotional well-being and connecting that to the pharmaceutical company. I don't want to veer off too much, but, you know, that's why I think changing your belief system, you know, I'm very big on trying to know things. You know, I'm not, that's the way I'm sort of being trained is to know, and I get that approach from yourself. So I can see that.
Open.
Yeah, but definitely you have to be. Yeah, you have to be open, and you have to be accessible to stuff, whether you are inclined with it or not. And the only way you're going to be able to reshape your belief system is to have an overview of everything around you, and then pick. My uncle said something. I'll finish on this and pass on. But my uncle said something quite beautiful, which I've never forgot, which was to pick sense out of nonsense. My brain just went tick. Unfortunately, I was in a state of bother, and my brain was up my arse at the time. But I've never forgotten that.
That's like a kohan. Can you get any sense to the nonsense? That's just nonsense.
And it's so keeping it on emotions. Do you have any practices that you've learned or engaged in over the years, or you're practicing now, that you feel the average individual or someone who's quite traumatic or in a down dark place could you utilize?
Yeah, sure. We'll go back to your example. Video games, the violent ones. Those are pretty dark, pretty scary. Remember a second ago, it's okay. You were talking about picking, maybe opening up to new opportunities, new possibilities, and picking and choosing from alternate choices, better choices, conceivably. And I would just like to add to that, I think that's wonderful, but I think the key to be able to adopt it, the new is to empty out the old.
Right.
Yeah. So adding new concepts on top of old ones doesn't seem to work. I think the key to that whole thing is to empty yourself.
How would one start working on that? Like, I have an understanding how to start that, and for sure I feel that actually more onto the side of detoxing and fasting.
Yeah, that's a part of it.
Cleansing yourself out. Go on.
1 second.
No problem.
Yeah, that's a good. We'll bring in the detoxing and the, and the new health regimens into this, because that is very important. And that just triggered me on what I was thinking while you were talking about the emptiness. Vibration is what the key is, I think, to all of this, and the waves of emotion. And what my practice has been, as well as being an empty vessel for a kind of a paint a picture, is also been to keep my vibration kind of consistent.
Yeah.
Because it's going to be up and down no matter what. But if you can try to level it at keep it consistent, because the body likes consistency. It wants to be, I find it wants to be level. It wants to be smooth, like running like a good engine on cylinders, bang, bang, perfect. And what I've been doing as a practice is I've been doing a lot of bathing in the tub, because I used to be like a shower guy, like just get a shower every day, once a day, whatever. But now it's the tub, and I like to put in the Epsom salts, and I don't skimp on it, because that magnesium is the key.
Yeah.
And I put in the baking soda or the bicarbonate.
Yeah.
And I'll, for like a full tub, I'll use a whole cup of bicarbonate, a whole cup of Epsom salts, and a whole cup of good quality sea salt, which ironically, I just went down to the ocean the other day, drug home 32 liters, 4 16-liter buckets, and made my own sea salt from the Atlantic Ocean. Yeah, it was pretty cool. First time for me to do that, because we've been
Oh man, I want the rest.
Yeah. Yeah, right.
Amazing.
Because there you go. And if I put like a cup of the sea salt in with the magnesium, it gives the, and I also add essential oil to that, whatever you like. Every day is different for me because I just like variety. But essential oils, and it allows the skin to accept, I think, better. Makes the skin supple so it accepts the minerals, it absorbs better. And I'm telling you, holy moly, wow. I highly recommend this to anybody watching this. And what it does, the effect is it keeps the engine running perfect. It smoothens out vibration inside, the subtle energies inside. And I just like, everybody knows that Epsom salt does that. Magnesium that's the natural remedy to everything, really. But as a daily practice, that's what I've been doing. And I love it. It's just, of course, I put in some good quality golden elixir in there that stretches it out.
Oh, yes.
And yeah, just the magnesium, I just want to get it. I want it just flowing through me. And that's what I've been working at. And I found that it keeps running really smooth. Like inside, my vibration just, it's low, like long way. If you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
like
It's
nice and steady.
And it's not.
Yeah. Instead of, yeah.
Yeah.
And that keeps my emptiness that I talk about. It keeps me able, I don't know. It's hard to describe, hard to put words to this, but I just find that it allows me to be that empty vessel, so that when my wife just got home, that's why the dog just went outside there to greet her. But like we talked about earlier, came home, had a hard day's work, and he had some issues, that she had to unload, because that seems to be how it works. Those vibrations just, whoosh, they come right out. Once you're in presence of another consciousness, just consciousness to consciousness, whoosh, right? I love it. And so, and be and doing my practices throughout the day. When this situation arises, when she comes home and I greet her at the door, except for today, I open her, I'm ready. She can fill me up. I'm empty. I'm ready. And whatever's on her shoulders, the weight, bring it on. I can take. I got shoulder. Right? That's. I don't know if that makes sense, but
no, it does make sense. Just a little bit I'd like to add to that is, talking about the ego and the self and call it super ego, whatever you want to call it. There's levels to it in my understanding, but it's almost like having two balls on a wave. And what you're talking about, having a nice wave, you want to try and keep those balls as aligned with each other as much as possible, because the more and those balls are going, like they're two energies, they're us. Do you know what I mean? There's two sides to us, if not more. Do you know what I mean? Not just the one. Trying to keep that energy together as close as possible, which is what you're trying to describe. That's what I was envisioning. It's like you want to try and keep that in sync as much as possible. If they're more split, that's where we get insane, because we're not in line with our higher self, with our oversoul, whatever the individual wants to call it. And that's where the ego can override, if that makes sense, because it's been set and programmed. And if you don't know your emotional status, or you haven't been trained in that sort of area, it's going to run riot and just, you're going to end up probably adding fuel to other people's traumas and stuff like that. But a little bit more to add on to the family side of things, being a family man and at-home dad, how amazing your studies on emotional well-being and stuff. How is that brushed onto your kids and the little dog? How does that? Do you see do you see the rewards as to how you maintain your well-being? Is it carried on in that manner as well?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, just hold on just a second there. I gotta make a quick call.
Yeah, sure.
Just a very quick one. sorry for that. I just had to gain back the bandwidth.
Right.
My wife came home and started going on Facebook or something. So you were chopping up, but I did get the question. How has the practice, how has it affected the family? Is what you asked, right?
Yeah.
Can I see in my experience how it, like we're at a very critical time, really, in this age of Aquarius, if that's what it's called, whatever. Like my kids go to school, like everybody, like to get schooled, and they come home with some propaganda or something, right? And this age of awakening has just opened up our eyes to to a lot of things. And I don't want to go in detail, but the point I'm trying to make is where I'm accepting and allowing enough that if just an example, because examples really paint a good picture for everybody. If, for instance, the kids came home and they were being schooled about the cosmos, and they're being taught that they can land on Mars if they become an astronaut, right? So instead of being reactionary, because that's easy to do, it seems to be that vortex you want to get sucked into. My practice has been I've been able to just to be that open or that empty vessel to just allow. And when it comes to the information part, like how do I explain to them? Well, it's quite possible that there is no outer space or there is no Mars. It might just be a luminary that's creating frequency that gives you gives you motion and creates our reality, really. So my practice has allowed me to be able to work with both, in the sense that I am not reacting to the propaganda part or whatever, the two opposing opinions, what's to say, because they're basically two opinions of the cosmos, in this example. So just being open to both and saying, well, here, and I'll give them the options, like it might not be that way. It could be this way. I like to think that my options are more exciting because I like to think creation, there's somebody behind it. Just look at mathematics. It just tells the tale right there. To me, there's an intelligence behind it, the design. So I'll explain to them and how I feel and what I've learned, and in a way that that they can. And I always not reinforce, because that sounds like forceful, but I like to say, well, maybe you can question things. You don't have to take everything to be written in stone. You're allowed to question everything. It's okay to question. So in my practice, I just kind of I feel that I just would want them to question things, because let's face it, nobody wants to have to go through what we went through and have this whole thing pulled out from under our rugs, because essentially that's what happened. Our what we call reality was just pulled out from underneath our feet, and now we're trying to regain our footing. What's going on here, right?
Yeah.
So going about that in a way that's graceful and accepting, and because they are two opposing opinions, concepts, so that both of them are relatively right or correct or real. So just being able to be open to it and allowing it is part of my process, and it has affected the kids. I see them come home from school and tell me that they have questioned things. They have asked questions, and that to me says, right on, good,
Yeah.
you did well.
It's working. The cogs are moving. Right?
Yeah,
You know, you're not just being saturated with information that, you know, strapping the good or bad thing. It's just being saturated with information and not questioning what this is can have a massive effect on how you approach yourself or other people or life as a whole. And I'm talking about emotions. Yeah, it's got to be quite deep.
Yeah.
It's got to be ingrained in there. I mean, I was just trying to think then, what emotion would we call this? What you express, the way you approach dealing with your family or close ones, your openness. What what would be the name of this emotion?
That's a good question. Love.
Good one. We know that it's a good one. Whatever it is,
Love.
It's a grand name.
Yeah, it has to be love.
Loves it.
Reason why I say love is because, like I said, it's basically two opposing opinions or two opposing concepts. Ultimately, what is real is not this. We don't know exactly what the grand designer looks like, or if there is whatever. But because that we're being authentic and humble and truthful and honest, those are all qualities of love, really, and just loving life. Because, you know, they're both two concepts, or there's many concepts. Nobody really has the answers. So I think that's love.
Yeah. It definitely spawns from it. Definitely. I mean, it's going that route. It's going to be a very. It is a constant, ever-growing energy. If you could put it into, take it out of an avatar, or just take it from the name or anything, it's got to be something that just feels like it's just sucking you in quite beautifully. It's a good energy. It's a very good energy.
Yeah, and that's it, a good energy.
Yeah, definitely. So, just wanted to touch on a couple more things now. What's your background with schooling? Have you looked into things like the electromagnetic spectrum? Is that something that is intriguing? Is there areas that you could encourage people to maybe sort of be bothered or open their mind up to really have an awareness, just a trigger, a catalyst to make them realize that actually, you know, we do have there is more to energy and us, and being able to manifest and utilize this energy as we see fit. I feel that's something that you are accustomed to and you know is quite real, is that we can manifest energy, and we do. And we also have the opportunity to utilize energy that comes towards us, negative or positive, whatever you want to call it. You know, I did in situations, and we definitely shared a bit of it, where people will come in with a negative vibe, and you have to master how to almost use that energy, not try and deter it away, become dense or anything, actually allow it to come in, turn it around, and allow it to become up positive, you know, and let it go essentially as well. What practices or what things technologies perhaps, that would you say are key or quite important to look at? And also, is there any sort of other practices? There's a few that I'll just ring off if people haven't heard of, like therapeutic touch, hollow energetic healing touching, qigong, reiki. There's a few of them I really touch base on myself, but obviously meditation's up there as well of some form. Yeah, enlighten me, please. I'd love to know how you get down.
Well, I'm gonna have to say I don't. The reason why I say I don't know, because that has been the best, have given the best result for me, because being open to all of those things you just mentioned, you have to be in a state where your willingness, in a state of I don't, like that's where kind of where it starts. So, and then you're open to, you know, to anything and everything. I know that I keep going to this as like a theme, but it's kind of what gets me. I don't even like to use the word me, but it kind of creates the environment for manifestation, like you talk about, and the manifestation of everything in my reality here is it's based upon just that openness, to be willing to be open and accept and allowing. And you asked about the electromagnetic spectrum. One thing that I know is that you know, through our 5 sense gates, we only know a tiny fraction of what we see from the visual spectrum, and from our ears, from the audio spectrum, we're only limited to a very small percentage. So it gives that. It's exciting. I don't mean that in a negative way, that because we're limited, it's exciting because to me it means that there's more to this. This reality has a lot more to offer, and we can expand ourselves, or expand our consciousness. We can rise up to the occasion. We can work towards that, because it's something more to to be able to manifest. And the vibration is the key. Being transparent, so that you can feel the vibration. The transparency is just like, if you could have a visual, it would be just like allowing a wave to come right into you. You feel it, and then it goes right through you. Just whoosh, and just allow it, and it teaches. It presents itself in every moment. What else? I mean, as far as those other practices that you mentioned, qigong, I'm not familiar with any of those, and I'm certain that they're probably all very good. I mean, I've seen it on online. You know, watched some amazing video where people can light paper on fire with their hands using qi energy. I mean, that to me, it's been debunked apparently, but I mean, I believe it's possible for sure. Because if we can align ourselves with that qi energy, and that's kind of been my practice with the baths, and trying to get that magnesium in, trying to create that proper mineral in the blood, keeping my blood, flowing, and keeping it a lot of water, a lot of minerals.
Yeah, the alkalinity, yeah.
And just little practices that are very helpful for me. It's just, I like to try to feel energy coming in between the hands. And now, if you were, you could probably see energy around my hands if your eyes could see. I think there's a possibility that someday we'll be able to actually see the aura and the energy fields as we bring our hands together, the increase and decrease. That'd be the chi, right?
Yeah.
There's potential for us, for certain, to expand into that whole bigger picture, because we know it exists.
Yeah, totally, 100%. One thing that we've definitely gone out of sync with is, I wouldn't say everybody, but myself, knowing now more and more, is nature, and it doesn't lie. Like, for example, just looking at other animals and just being able to see that they have these amazing talents, like fish that can self-heal in another way, which is scientists have been looking at. I forget what little fish it is, but there's some fishes that they have this amazing way of recreating itself, and they look at spiders for certain abilities of material, and how dolphins have telekinesis. I mean, it's got to be real, because if animals can do it, we are part of the animal world. We are part of everything else. Telekinesis is going on, and you've got birds that can talk. So it's nothing new what we're doing. Like there's so much hidden not hidden, in our face, you know, in nature. And if we were only just open to it, the possibility will definitely pop up. But you know, I'll just say a little bit more on me again. I feel like there's a stage in me on an emotional side where I kind of felt like there's still some peeling to go. And no, it's not. It is. There is still some peeling to go. You know, I've come a long way in the last few years, and I almost feel like I kind of need to cry. And that sounds quite interesting, but I need to let off some huge steam. Like anyone who knows about crying, it's an amazing toxin release, and I've ingrained in myself somehow to basically not cry. You know, this happened for years.
Yeah.
So I'm in need of some of that soon, you know, but it's getting there. The acknowledgement of it is quite amazing for me, because before it wasn't there. So that's saying quite a lot for me on an emotional level, that I'm vibrating a little bit more, being around individuals or listening and sharing time with individuals like yourself, being in certain particular groups, fortunately through Facebook or whatever social media group it is, bringing in a new awareness to where I am today. And wow, your information and your presence today was just beautiful. And I'm really, really glad that you shared your time with me today, Glenn. It's been really powerful. You know, I think we can always bring another episode on emotions and go a little bit more in depth. But I think on that note, I would love to say to the group, to everyone watching, thank you for watching. It's been amazing. Glenn Dixon, thank you so much for being with us today. And
thank you very much.
Please like the page. We are on YouTube as well. Need to Node. That's 2 with a number 2. Need to Node. So you can find us there, and on Facebook it's the Need to Node Crosstalk Show. Like us, follow us, and look forward to seeing you guys soon. And again, thank you very much. Speak to you soon. Thank you.
Thank you.